Hello, everybody, and welcome, or a little loud, to the Raptors Happy Hour today for the Friday Happy Hour, and we are heading into the All-Star break. So this episode is really going to be a where we're at type of show. We're going to be trying to zoom out on things, taking a look at where the Raptors stand at the All-Star break. We're about two-thirds of the way into the season. Should we be happy? Should we be upset? Are we on the right path? Etc. That's going to be the direction that we take with this rendition of the Happy Hour. We're also going to be discussing the Raptors and their seemingly inability to beat some of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. We're going to also talk about some general NBA stuff like tanking and its effect on the league. And we'll also just talk about what you want to talk about with some questions that come through from the chat. If all that sounds good, we're going to jump into things here on this Happy Hour. This is the show where I cover everything around the Toronto Raptors, from breaking news to discussion to chat to questions, as I mentioned with you guys. That is what we do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Echo. Oh, my goodness. There we go. Sorry about that. Damn. That's a rough way to start. Sorry, guys. Fixed the audio there. We're back. I started a little late because I had some camera issues. And I guess when I reconfigured it, the audio was coming through on it as well. So anyways, back to normal. Back to the correct audio. Let's do it. Like I said, this is the Raptors Happy Hour. We cover the latest news surrounding the Toronto Raptors. We do breaking news. We do discussion. We do questions and answers. We like to hear your input from the chat. And for today's show, we're going to be zooming out on the season. We're going to be discussing where the Raptors stand as we get to the All-Star break, about two-thirds of the way through the season. Are we on the right path? Are we on the wrong path? Where do we see this team going, especially for the rest of the season? We're going to be talking about what seemingly is the inability of this team to win against the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Have not been able to do that with any consistency or really at all so far this season. We're going to talk about general NBA stuff like tanking and its impact on the league, maybe what our potential solutions could be to tanking, and a whole lot of other stuff that we get from the chat as well. We do this show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And I do streams where I watch along the Raptors on top of that, plus clips throughout the week. So much great content on the channel. You are not going to want to miss out on. Hit that like button to get us started here and subscribe for more content. Friday the 13th today. I'm not one who plays into these sorts of things. I mean, honestly, if I don't get reminded about things like Friday the 13th, it wouldn't even register. It wouldn't even register. I wouldn't even care. Like, it wouldn't even factor into my day in the slightest. I'm curious from you guys using the chat right now. Is this something you worry about? Is this something you care about? Are you superstitious at all? I don't consider myself to be superstitious really ever. But, man, when I've got a Toronto sports team in, like, Game 6 or 7 of a playoff series, if I've got one of my nationalities extremely deep in the international tournament in soccer, so like World Cup semifinals or final, or semifinal final of the Euros, man, do I feel really superstitious in those moments. Not like, I have like a lucky pair of socks, or I have to sit in a certain spot on the couch, but in a way, like, I don't try to tempt fate with my language in any way whatsoever. Like, I will never say, like if my team's in the semis, I won't be saying, like, if we play this team in the final. I don't even mention if we play this team in the final. I don't even talk about that. I don't even talk about that. And I mean, like, oh, we got this, or no. There's no we got this, or we're gonna win this game. No, I don't tempt fate with any of that, which is a little bit. I don't know why it just comes out of me there. So I don't know. Curious what you guys and you guys and your involvement in things like that. I consider myself someone who doesn't care, but then I care a lot when it comes to those sorts of events. I mean, man, with the Blue Jays, Game 6 of the World Series, I wasn't letting anyone tell me anything about winning that game or the game after. We all know how that finished. Hey, Blue Jays are back soon, so at least we got that. Devastating to even think about the Blue Jays at this point. even still to this day. Let's say what's up to the people in the chat. We have Alamdar joining us, Nate D, Adam H, Gordku. This is, oh my goodness, what is that? I don't even want to read that one. And we keep it going. Thank you again for joining me here today. We got All-Star Weekend up ahead. I'm not going to really, I told you guys in the last stream, I'm not really invested into the All-Star Weekend. We got 2 Raptors in this game, and I still don't really care. I'm still not really that invested. I like how the NBA is kind of trying something with this Team World versus Team USA format, but it still doesn't do enough for me. I'm not going to fall for it again type of thing with these formats. I'm kind of hoping it sparks something. I'm kind of hoping, in the Team World versus Team USA game, there is that sort of factor of like, oh, we want to do it representing the nationalities here. A bit difficult to do that when you're representing Team World, but at least the NBA is kind of trying something here. I'll let other people watch it and let me know if it's success. If it's a success, maybe I'll watch the next year. But at this point, no plans for me to watch anything. I'm not going to fall for the skills competition word again. The dunk contest is tired. I'm really, unfortunately, 3-point contest is still kind of cool, but the events are so drawn out. I think I'm just going to end up avoiding this one altogether, to be honest. A little bit of a shame. Feels like we have some pretty evenly matched teams. So Scotty Barnes is on the USA Stars team. Brandon Ingram is on the USA Stripes team. We've got a couple former Raptors here. Norman Powell and Pascal Siakam on the Team World. Luka kind of dealing with, I talked about this earlier today on a show I did with my work, and Luka Doncic actually he might be a bit hurt. Him not playing would actually help Team World because he doesn't try, neither does Jokic. Having Wemby here might actually make them try, because Wemby's definitely going to try. I think Norm is going to want to try. I think Jamal Murray might want to show out a little bit. So we may have some effort on the Team World side. This USA Stripes team, I don't think LeBron is going to care. Kevin Durant has talked about caring, but I don't think he's going to care that much. I don't see this USA Stripes team really feeling that type of way. I think USA Stars, I'm trying to look at it from a motivational perspective. I think this is the team that's going to try the most. I think Scotty's going to try. I think Tyrese Maxey will want to try. I think Chet will want to try. I think Jalen Johnson will want to try. Anthony Edwards as well. Kind of, fueled by these personal vendettas type things. Jalen Duren might want to show out a little bit. I think this is the best. I think this team will perform the best at the event. I think they will. I think they will care the most. So I think that's why I kind of lean into that direction. So for the question from Nate D, are Ingram and Barnes still his teammates? They are not teammates for the All-Star event. That's where we're at. Was Curry from the West on the same team as Barnes from the East? Steph Curry was supposed to be on the Stripes team, which is the team that Brandon Ingram is now on. Hence why Brandon Ingram has come in as an injury replacement for him, even though they're not in the same conferences. Because De'Aaron Fox came in for an Eastern Conference player as well. So I guess that's how they ended up going with it. Who replaced Shea? So it was, so Şengün replaced Shea in the end. So 3 injury replacements, it looks like, and we got one of them. And then we could count ourselves a little bit lucky here from a Raptors perspective. All right, let's dive into things here. We just talked about the All-Star break a little bit, and where the Raptors stand at the All-Star break, all that stuff. And I do want to take this opportunity here, like I said about where we are at this stage of the season. I do want to take the opportunity that we have here to let's zoom out on the season. Let's zoom out on the Raptors season and take a real look at where we sit, how we're doing. Are we on the right path for the long term? Are we on the right path for the short term? Let's truly understand where we're at in this season and if we should be satisfied with where things sit. We've had a large sample of games now, and it's always kind of, I don't know, it's kind of crept up on us here where Can we keep this going? Can the Raptors sustain this? They're winning games. They're winning at a higher rate than we would have expected. Can they continue to sustain this? And I think we're at the point now where we have to like pretty safely say, yes, like this is a good team. The Raptors are a good team. Maybe they've fallen a little bit off the pace of like a New York Knicks team or a Boston Celtics team, but they're not that far behind them in the standings here. Like we are at the All-Star break here, and we're a 5th seed. We are the 5th seed here. We are 3.5 games out of the 2 seed Boston Celtics, 3 games back of the 3 seed Knicks, 2 games back of the Cavaliers who are in 4th, and we have a 3-game lead on the play-in tournament spots. Like, throughout the season, there's been ups and there's been downs, absolutely. But truly, and I continue to say this in my content, but I truly think it's important to really understand, like, we weren't supposed to be this good here. The Raptors were projected to be a 500 team or like slightly less. Like coming to the season, it was about 40 wins or so. That was the expectation for this team. So the fact that we've been able to do this is remarkable, and we need to truly appreciate that. You know, our team has been excellent on defense. Barnes has looked like the Defensive Player of the Year candidate on a team that really wasn't supposed to be that good defensively. I mean, you look at the players around Scotty Barnes, like Pirtle's a great defender, but he hasn't been healthy, so he hasn't been good when he's been in the lineup. Brandon Ingram's not a great defender. RJ Barrett's a bad defender. Quickly's not a great defender. Mamu is not necessarily known for like his defense. Murray Boyles has been a great defender, but other than that, like Walter has been decent. Grady Dick is not a good defender. And nonetheless, like all of these guys getting consistent minutes, a lot of like non-positive defenders, this has been a great defense. So I think a lot of credit does have to go into what they've been able to achieve on that end of the floor, because they worked for it. They made it a big deal in the offseason, to be this defensive first sort of team, to instill this hard-working defensive mindset. And they've been able to achieve that. And that's a big reason why they are where they are in the standings. They have been one of the, if not the best clutch defense in the league. They've been able to eke out a lot of ugly wins and tight wins in the clutch as a result of their defense, because their offense has been okay. We're very much feeling with the lack of like a traditional big in instances, but we're definitely lacking with shooting, and that's made it difficult in a lot of occasions this season, especially against some of the better teams in the league for sure. But like this is a team like last year at this time, we wanted them to lose games. We were hoping they would lose games. It's like an awful position to be in. We wanted the Raptors to lose the games that they were playing. We were invested in the tank. We wanted as good of a draft pick as possible. And the Raptors were winning games against teams that were like out tanking them. It was a complicated scenario for the Raptors to be in, but it is 2 years in a row where the Raptors were tanking. They really committed to last year being the first year of their rebuild. So in going off that, 2 years in a row with tanking, last year they only won 30 games. To come into this season and be 9 games above 500 at the All-Star break, it is absolutely incredible. It has to be considered an incredible season by the Raptors. And they've done this without even really making like a go for it, win now type of move. Like obviously they traded for Brandon Ingram about a year ago now at the trade deadline. But then again, what did they give up to get Brandon Ingram? What was supposed to be a not so great first round pick and expiring salary? That's hardly making a win now move. It wasn't even to pick one of the Raptors' own picks. They still own all of their draft capital. So they're coming off of a tank. They're in the second year of their rebuild. They have not expended any of their draft capital to make a win now trade. And yet here they sit, like I said, 32-23, 9 games above 500 on the season. You absolutely have to consider this season a success. Now, there might be some people who, look at that and say, well, how much of a success can we give this? Because we have maybe punched above our weight a little bit to get to this stage of the season, to get to this record at this stage of the season. And yes, we have to give them credit for that, but like we could have done more with it. Doesn't it feel like the Eastern Conference is relatively open and it's kind of there for the taking? And if you really strengthen your team or you can go on a run, I think there's absolutely a case for that, but the Raptors didn't see that sort of move to make at the trade deadline. They're holding their cards close to their chest as normal, and they're not in a rush, and I think that's really the right approach to take. I think we sometimes overrate this necessity to either be a true contender or one of the worst teams in the league. Like, I think it's okay sometimes to win games and to get better and to see what you have, because another tanking season, we wouldn't have two All-Stars. Like, we have two All-Stars. Scotty Barnes has truly ascended to another level this season. I find it really hard to believe he could have done that on a team that was once again trying to lose more games than they were winning. So a lot of credit has to go to the players for the way that some of them have, like Scotty Barnes have stepped up this season, how Brandon Ingram has stepped up this season, RJ Barrett performed well this season. Because there's a lot of individuals that aren't really performing for this team. You got to give a shout out to Jamal Shed and guys like Mamu Kelishvili, Colin Murray-Boyles coming in as a rookie. You got to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff for continuing to get this team to stick together despite the losses the last few years, despite the tanking. Morale never really seemed to waver, and for instilling this defensive mindset within the team. Let's not be greedy here. I see a lot of negativity around this team still. But truly, imagine yourself ahead of this season. Truly imagine where you were. If at the time before the season started, if somebody told you at the All-Star break you're going to be the 5th seed and 9 games of 500. Wow. How could you have not taken that deal? And we've left some wins on the table too. But how could you have not taken that deal? I think it feels a little bit less incredible where we're at, considering we've been here pretty much all season. We started 1-4, then we went on a run, and we've been pretty much here we've been here for most of the season. So it doesn't feel as grand. But what if we reverse some of the way the season has gone, and we've made a run and now we've gone up to the 5th seed at this stage? We'd be talking about, oh my God, what a run the Raptors are on. So I think it's important at this point. We've got a week off of action for the Raptors. I think it's very important to zoom out, reflect on what the team has achieved this season, and I think it's a really good showcase of the Raptors. We're on the right path here. We are heading in the right direction. We are a young core that is getting better. We haven't rushed things. We have the capability of making moves in the offseason. I think next year we have a more tradable position with guys like RJ Barrett if the Raptors want to trade him. They, like I said, all of the draft capital at their disposal. Yeah, the financial flexibility doesn't really open up because you still have Pearl and you still have Quickly, but at this stage, second year of the rebuild, Scotty Barnes is only 24 years old, and he's playing like a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He's an all-star. He could be All-NBA this year. I think it's very, very much safe to say that the Raptors are comfortably ahead of schedule. Now the difficulties will be, okay, what are we going to do the rest of the season? Can we make the playoffs? Can we make some noise in the playoffs? And then how are we going to build on this for next year? Because this is a pretty big building block to try and stack up to next season as well. What are we going to do to build off this? That's going to be some tough work for the front office to try and figure out. But you cannot deny that we are absolutely moving in the right direction with things at the moment. So I think you should be quite pleased with where we are. Great all-star game checkpoint. Great time to be a Raptors fan at the moment, we got to say. Nate D said, if you were to give Darko a rating out of 5 stars on a defensive coaching, what would your rating be? From this season, out of 5, I don't think it's necessarily been perfect. Tough to give a 5, but 4 or 4.5. If I'm giving a rating, they're bought in. They're bought in. A lot of defensive work does come down to effort. Everyone's putting in effort, it seems. Rotations have been pretty on point for most of the season. They're using Scotty Barnes' strengths extremely well. You have to give that a lot of credit on that side of things as well. It was bad to start the season, but it is improved. And it was improving last season, albeit against some weak competition, but it's a showcase that was real. CTN say, I think the Raptors are trying hard to be the best they can, but in the playoffs they will get smoked. I don't think they'll get smoked. We'll touch on that in a sec. But I think it's okay to make the playoffs and not be the better team and to lose there. I think it's okay to get into the playoffs and grow from there and get that experience. I don't think that's a bad thing, right? 9 games over 500, never in a million years. I believe the Raptors are top 5 in the East. Well, in a million years, I could have believed it. In enough samples, they could have. I am quite surprised though. If you were to tell me, if you were to tell me on day one, going to the first game, top 5, 9 games with 500, the All-Star break, I bet, wow, that is phenomenal. That is phenomenal. Off topic, Chris Paul retired. Yeah, how about that, guys? Chris Paul retired as a Raptor. I mean, I guess he got waived, but Chris Paul's final team will be as a Toronto Raptor. I'm a little surprised that there was like genuinely no interest. If there was interest, I think he would have played somewhere. I'm quite surprised that there was no interest in a team picking him up just like to have for the rest of the season. I thought there would be a team, and I feel like if there was a team, he would have signed for them. He would have signed for them by now. Feel bad for RJ. He wants to be here and is trying his best and does help team compete. They still want to trade. Yeah, I mean, RJ has done everything he can to be with this team, but the play style is just something that the contract is something the Raptors just aren't interested in. They have not that they're not interested. It's just they're more interested in other things and other avenues. Yeah, you do kind of feel for him because he's played his ass off and he's been fantastic this season, but I understand the Raptors' perspective as well. Andrew says, I said top 6 this year, but we'll see. They may impress me. This is what I'm trying to say. I think you really need to be impressed with what you've seen. We can't be great. We got to be happy with what's been accomplished so far. Gorku says, we make the playoffs but lose. We need the experience because when we watch them play a playoff team, they look not ready. Yeah, we'll get into that here now. I still think it's okay to test yourself in the playoffs. I still think that's fine. Half the teams that make the playoffs don't win their first round. I think making the playoffs would be an achievement for this team. It was probably more likely than not. It was probably about 50-50 start of season to make the playoffs. So to get there would be great. But as many people are pointing out here, as much as it is looking like the Raptors are going to be a playoff team this season, maybe not necessarily by finishing the top 6, though they look pretty good to be able to do that, being the 5th seed at the All-Star break, but could also be the play-in tournament. But being that it looks like right now that through top 6 or play-in tournament, the Raptors look like they're going to make the playoffs, we need to have a discussion around what we can expect from the team when they get there, because unfortunately, so far this season, when they've had to match up against some decently likely first-round opposition, they've faltered. They've fallen flat. They've lost the games, and then oftentimes they've looked quite uncompetitive in those games. So where are these problems stemming from? How large of a problem should we be treating this as? Let's break it down. And we're now coming off of another loss to one of the top teams in the East, this time the very top team in the Eastern Conference being the Detroit Pistons. And we got to be honest here, this was a pretty wire-to-wire comfortable win for the Pistons. They ended up winning 113-95. Probably could have won by more. Like, the Raptors were down pretty comfortably after the first, and it could have been worse. But yeah, they controlled this game. They were far the superior team. You look at the plus minus of the starters here. They were the dominant factors. Pretty remarkable that in a 20-point loss nearly, Scotty Barnes was only a -1. Plus minus isn't everything, but Barnes continues to be excellent in his minutes, and it's like a problem when he's not on the floor. And this was a game where he was in foul trouble, so maybe could have gotten more minutes, and maybe the game changes a little bit in that case. But whatever. It's another loss, and it's not just like any old other loss. It's another comfortable loss to a team near the top of this conference. The Raptors are now 0-1 against the Pistons, 0-3 against the Knicks, 0-3 against the Celtics. Those are the top 3 teams in the East. They are 3-0 against the Cavs, though they played the Cavs earlier on in the season. They won all the games. They played them earlier on in the season when the Cavs were struggling. They are not struggling anymore, and they have upgraded the trade deadline by acquiring James Harden. So we'll have another test to see, how we feel with the Cavs, but perhaps like the only team that's above us that we've beaten in the East is a team that has changed since we beat them. In the Western Conference, we've beaten the Thunder, but we've lost to the Spurs, we've lost to the Nuggets, we've lost to the Rockets, we've lost to the Lakers, we've lost to the Timberwolves. Again, it's like the truly elite teams. These are the teams you're going to get in the playoffs, especially like from an Eastern Conference perspective, obviously. These are the teams you're going to be playing. And again, it's not about just losing. It's the manner. It's a blowout loss here to the Knicks. It's we kept it close, but like it still felt like a pretty comfortable win for the Celtics. It's this comfortable win for the Celtics. It's this decent. It was a decent, comfortable win for the Celtics. It's this blowout loss to the Knicks. It's this other kind of blowout loss to the Knicks. Like we haven't been truly that competitive within those games either. And I think there are some very prominent reasons why that's the case. So first of all, and we've already spoken about these a bunch, but let's kind of revisit them here. All-Star break is a really good checkpoint to kind of check in on these sorts of things. But first of all, when you're playing against a better team, oftentimes they can be setting the tone for scoring, and they've got good shooters. Like good teams typically have good floor spacing. The Raptors do not. So when you get into these scoring battles and it's back and forth, and the other team is kind of setting the tone and setting the pace for scoring, the Raptors can't quite keep up. They aren't able to generate the stops that puts them in transition. The transition game is fantastic for the Raptors, but when they have to play in half court, that's where they struggle. The more points you allow, the more baskets you allow, the less you're able to play in transition and play off of those misses. Therefore, the less opportunity you have in transition to play your style of offense. With the lack of three-point shooting, the Raptors can't quite match up to the scoring output when another team is raining down threes on them, for example. On top of that, as we play better teams, as we get into these more half-court oriented games, the games get more physical. And physicality is where the Raptors have struggled this season. They're lacking in size all over the place, not just in the big department, but particularly in the big department. So when a game gets physical, especially when they're playing against an opposition like traditional big, they have found they found it tough, and they have definitely struggled. This season. So you've got those two things, plus maybe from a game management perspective, it feels like some of these games have slipped away from us, where we've kept it close, or we've been leading in some of these games. Maybe it's like a missed opportunity for Darko Rajakovic to make a sub and get his best players on the floor, like going through a stretch of the fourth quarter where Barnes and Ingram are both on the bench, which shouldn't happen. Maybe a challenge should have been used that wasn't used. Maybe sometimes the offense is a little bit too much. Give the ball to Brandon Ingram and pray, and it's losing the principles that got you to this point of the season and got you maybe to that point of the game. But let's try and figure it, like, where can the pause? So how, like, if we made the pause, how are we going to beat one of these teams? How are we going to compete with one of them? Because at this point, it seems very much like the Raptors are going to be underdog. If they make the playoffs, they'll be the underdogs in any playoff series that they get. How are they going to compete with these teams? Well, I think a big thing that's happened in the last week or so is that Jakob Poeltl has played basketball again. Now, he looked a bit stiff, which is natural. He's missed a lot of time this season. But I think what has to unfortunately be pivotal is just the health of Poeltl. We bet on his health at the start of the season. And in spite of that, we're 9 games above 500 here at the All-Star break, like I said. But, wow, imagine if we had Poeltl. We'd probably be even better. We'd have the defensive anchor. We'd have that size. The Clippers game slipped through our fingers, I think, largely because we didn't have a player like him. The Lakers game kind of slipped away from us because we didn't have that sort of size. There's probably other examples where having that type of player would have made a difference to this team. So what if we can get him healthy? I think that's pretty important for a playoff series, having that presence, especially for half-court settings, for screen setting for Emmanuel quickly. That creates space for an offense to kind of force a defense to rotate, create maybe some switches, some mismatches, some advantages for the Raptors. All that stuff on offense. On defense, having that defensive anchor, being able to rebound more reliably, I think that's big. So Jakob Poeltl's health is a big thing. On top of that, we need some players to step up. Like Ingram and Barnes have been all-stars. RJ's played his ass off this season, but quickly has been inconsistent. Off the bench, there's not really reliable scoring. Shed's been great, but his scoring's not reliable. Mamu has been pretty good this season. Like really good this season. Can't really complain about him. But beyond that, like Grady Dick is incredibly, I mean, I wouldn't even say inconsistent. He's been pretty consistently not great. Walter has had more games that aren't super effective than effective games, where he's not contributing to a super high degree. Colin Murray-Boyles' health is pretty important because he's been great when he plays, but he hasn't been consistently playing like every game this season. So I think having a healthy Poeltl is vital and just giving some more help to this team. And I think that also like the bench aspect of it kind of brings us to like another reason where there's struggles. Like some of these better teams, like we saw the Pistons, like there wasn't really any minutes off for that team. They were on it the whole game. They were on us the whole game. There was like no points really where the Raptors were able to chip back into the game. And I think a reason why that was the case was that there was no off time for the lineups. They're deeper teams. We don't get that break. We don't have those lineups we can pick on. Whereas the Raptors, there's probably some lineups that you can pick on. So maybe in the playoffs when lineups are more constricted, you're playing less guys that could help out the Raptors, but other teams are going to be doing the same thing, and you're going to be getting their top guys as well. So again, it feels like we're underdogs in any playoff series. I don't think it's as hopeless as people are labeling it to be, but we're going to struggle to win a playoff series. But if the Raptors can get to that point and get into the playoffs, I still think we need to consider this season as a success. But we know what the issues are. We're still early in this process. We're ahead of schedule. We can make these amendments hopefully in the offseason and come in with hopefully a much better approach to next year. But I don't think we should be ruling out a playoff series victory at this point. We've got the players who can hang. Can we get the lineups right? Can we get the right output in that sample from the additional pieces to will us over the line? I think we're good enough to do it. But like I said, we're probably underdogs. Doesn't mean you can't win. We can still do it. Don't make it hopeless. It's definitely not hopeless for these teams. But that's where we are at with that's where I'm at with playing some of the top teams here. Teams, as Gregory, are 2-year members as teams get their full identity by playoff experience. Playoffs will help. It's got to help Scotty Barnes. Brandon Ingram, too, getting more playoff experience. For any guy, it's going to be big. It's a step up. And hopefully, people step their game up for that. CC, I'm wondering if RJ is asking for more than what the Raptors want to pay him, or is it just a fit issue? I mean, RJ is going to want to get. I think RJ is going to want to get paid. I don't think the Raptors want to be the team to pay him. I think it's the biggest thing. It's a fit issue that they perceive. They'd rather use those finances elsewhere to complement the team better. I think his value goes up as an expiring contract for next year, though. Right now, 1.5 years on the deal. As an expiring contract in the next season, I think it becomes more valuable for a trade. I just don't think the Raptors want to be the team that has to pay him. I think it's always been a fit issue. Gorka says, to me, finish top 6 this year, next year, play-in team. It is possible. It could be next year, but that's where you look to make the moves to strengthen your team, to get bigger, and to get more shooting. Could have got more for OG, but Why the York deal? Did they send him to the team that wanted to go? They just could give it the best could. Felt like a pretty good return, honestly. Quickly was like an ascending young guard. That was a pretty good player to take a bet on. I think we'd have a much different opinion about Quickly. The Raptors didn't pay him as much as they did. Also, we got the 31st overall pick there. Remember, it was an expiring contract on OG. It was an expiring contract. It's tough to hold leverage in a trade when the player is going to walk away in free agency, which it maybe was pointing towards. So, we can talk negatively about maybe we should have gotten more for OG. We talk even more negatively if OG had walked for nothing in the offseason, right? That's how I kind of look at it. Gordy says, CMB needs to go up more. Last few games were good for him. Needs to go up more. Well, he was out last game. CMB's been great. A lot of people love CMB. What a find for the Raptors in the draft. I'm happy to see that going forward. Anyways, let's shift gears. Let's talk NBA as a whole. It's very clear, maybe this year more than ever, the NBA has got a problem, guys. And that problem is tanking. And through all of the methods they have gone through to try and solve the tanking issue, it just, I don't know if it's recency bias, but it just feels like it is getting worse. So, let's try and come up with a solution to tanking in the NBA. And like I said, they've tried some methods towards stopping teams from tanking. Like, you can't have star players always sit out. There are larger, like, you have two star players, they can't both be sitting out on a given night. They have made restrictions on why you can rule players out a little bit more strict. It's harder to find reasons to rule players out. There's no longer just leaving a guy out for rest. There actually needs to be injuries. So teams are getting more and more creative. It reminds me of like ads. The more we try and block ads and we have these ad blockers and whatnot, the more the ads get creative and find ways to still advertise to you. Well, how about the tanking? The more we implement ways to try and stop tanking, the more teams get creative. They get creative with their injury reports. They get creative with the timing of things. And now we're getting to the point where the Utah Jazz, and the Raptors did this last year too. It's not just them. If they're winning or in a tight game in the fourth quarter, they are just going to pull out their best players. They're going to pull out Jaren Jackson Jr., Larry Market. And Jaren Jackson Jr. all of a sudden is going to miss the rest of the season with injury. An injury the Memphis Grizzlies never saw, but for some reason the Utah Jazz have been able to see. We're getting more and more creative here. And it's really diminishing the quality of the product. It's difficult. Tickets are expensive, especially in Toronto. So it's tough to justify sometimes paying that admission to go into these games. You don't even know which players you're going to see on any given night. And this is just nothing like other sports. Like, you don't get players just randomly sitting out for rest. Like I think to hockey, guys are always playing. I think to soccer, the only reason like some of the top guys will be not in the lineup is because there's a big game midweek or a big game they need to be saved for. That's not really why necessarily you see it in the NBA. So I can understand where frustration comes from there. And then even greater frustration where like you're watching a game, it's a great game, then you get to the fourth quarter. Okay, Markin and Jaren Jackson are out of the game now. They're not playing for the rest of the quarter. So the NBA has a problem with tanking. So let's try and look to what solutions are out there for tanking. I think a lot of the solutions we see, or proposed solutions, for example, a lot of them just make it so that tanking occurs higher up in the standings. For instance, we make it so only the bottom 4 teams can get the first overall pick. Well, guess what? Teams who are bottom 5 or 6 know this, and they need to very aggressively tank to make sure they're a bottom 4 team. You kind of move it up there. People have said teams that missed the playoffs all have the same odds to get the first overall pick. Equalize the odds outside the playoffs. Well, now I think teams in the play-in are going to really not want to be in the play-in. They'd much rather get an equal shot at getting the first overall pick. So now the tanking happens around like the 9 or 10 seed, which, I mean, maybe it already does. So some propositions to try and change this and make these games more competitive throughout the season are taking away the draft or making it so that there's like now the NBA's talk about making a tournament for teams outside the playoffs to play for the first overall pick. And the winner of the tournament gets the first overall pick. And I think in theory, like, this is like, oh, this would be exciting. This would be a fun idea. But like, there's no way this will work. There's no way this will work. First of all, every team who's not in the playoffs, or every team playing in this tournament as a lottery team, they need to own their own pick. So what if you're the Clippers and you tank and you suck and Oklahoma City own your pick? Does OKC get to play in this tanking tournament? They're going to win it every year and have the first pick every year. Do the Clippers have to play in it? Even though they don't own their pick? Are we just going to avoid that spot and that team's not playing in this tournament? That's a bit messy. On top of that, for like a tournament for lottery teams in the current draft order, who the hell's playing in this? What do players care about the draft? Like, consider you're a player on an expiring contract. There's no way you're going to want to play in a tanking tournament, in a tournament for the first pick to reap rewards that you are never going to see. What does this do for you as a player? I don't want to get injured in this. I don't care about this pick. Like Adams was so fixated on these tournaments. Like, they've brought in this in-season tournament that players, even with these outrageous financial incentives, these players just do not care about it. And I cannot see them. I can only see them caring less about a tournament for the draft picks. Now, it's important to remember that, you know, this Legion Hoops post, the NBA is discussing creating a tournament among large teams to determine draft order in order to stop tanking. They're discussing. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are implementing, of course. I think abolishing the draft is actually an interesting thing for teams to take on. You could have it so you're only allowed to sign a certain amount of players that are entering the league that declare to enter the NBA. There is like strict salary caps on signing those players, so it's a little bit more dispersed. But like small market teams kind of get cooked in that scenario. I agree. I think the solution for me, because I really don't see, I haven't been truly convinced on a solution. I would love to hear in the chat a proposed solution you have. The only solution that I see that is alleviating a lot of the issues here, you take away the play-in tournament, because I think the play-in tournament is a little bit silly as well. You've got 82 games to get into a playoff spot. And in the Eastern Conference in particular, there's teams that maybe don't even want to be in the play-in tournament because they want to get a better draft pick. So teams are tanking from there. I think you get rid of the play-in tournament. I think that there is enough incentive in making the 8 seed to deter teams away from being in the lottery. Because if you're an 8 seed, you've got 4 guaranteed playoff games. In particular, your ownership gets 2 home playoff games at the minimum. Making the playoffs is a moneymaker for a team. So there's enough incentive there and for the players to get there because they get 4 playoff games the minimum. If you snatch a game, you've got 5 games. You got 5 games right there. So I think there is a lot of incentive to actually just straight up making the playoffs as the 8 seed. And teams will be chasing to get in as the 8 seed. I think the in-season tournament was really invented to make games more important and lower down the standing for teams trying to chase the play-in tournament. But I don't think it's quite really working that way anymore. So I think top 8 make the playoffs, go back to that format. The teams that miss the playoffs, even odds. Even odds for the lottery. Now, the issue with this is that absolutely the worst teams who need the help don't get the help. They don't have that help from the draft. I get that. That's problematic. But I think we've just gotten to such a point with tanking that something needs to be done. And I think this just allows teams to further be competitive. One of the main issues here really is just that these games just won't matter for these teams still. These games are unincentivized. Like you have games, like there will never be a game that doesn't matter in like the English Premier League soccer, for example, because there are all these European position teams are fighting for in the top half and in the bottom half. You're trying to avoid relegation around mid-table. Every single position you finish above in the standings is extra money for your club, to be able to spend in the next year. So maybe some sort of incentive along with it for finishing higher in the standings. Does it give you more ability maybe to spend in the off season? Does it give you just a bonus for the players? So maybe the players get a bonus. Maybe that's the best way to do it. Is there some sort of restriction lifted on the cap for you? Something like that. There needs to be incentive for winning. There needs to be a drive and motivation factor for winning. I think for the players, just being able to go out there and want to play and want to showcase themselves is pretty good to not have to worry about the lottery odds. So I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, I think the truly best way to make games more competitive is just abolish the draft. You want to look good and set your team up for people joining the league to sign them. I don't think we can ever get that drastic. I think that eliminate the play-in, top 8 make the playoffs, lottery teams all get the same odds. There could be a team that tanks out of the 8 seed because they want to get a better shot in the draft, but I think the allure of 4 guaranteed playoff games and 2 guaranteed home games is enough that players and teams will want to make the playoffs there. That is my solution for tanking. I would love to hear yours if you have one. Put it in the chat. How do we stop tanking? But tanking, you can't blame the teams. Well, of course they're going to tank. But does the Jazz care about a couple extra wins in March or February? They want the first pick. They want to give themselves the best chance at getting the first pick or a higher pick. Of course teams are going to tank. Tanking makes so much sense that it is like idiotic not to do it. That's like where we've really run into problems, I feel. It just makes so much sense to tank. And it's so easy to do it in the NBA compared to some other leagues where NHL tanking isn't as aggressive. In football, it's not quite as aggressive, right? That's where the NBA, that's where it's at. That's where the problems kind of lie. The NBA needs to talk about that's injuries. Sorry, let me read this. In a game, if you pull out your stars in the last 6 minutes without being injured or within 10 points, get hit with a fine. That's just it's just so ridiculous to police that though, because you could say he's not feeling comfortable out there, or I want to get a look at other guys. Like a coach, just coach a decision. I want to play other guys. It's tough to police that. I think we're getting real crazy with. And they're getting real crazy. We start to police benching guys, essentially. Yeah, relegation system is interesting, but it's just ownership groups will never go for that. Imagine the Wizards get relegated. That is absolutely crumbling to that team, absolutely crumbling to the franchise. And then you'll have G League teams in the NBA, Raptors 905 and the Raptors in the NBA. That does not make any sense to have them playing in the same league. I don't know, you can make a second league of all these different teams, but that league would get no attention. I don't know. In this world where everyone just, it feels like everyone's bitching about participation awards. Everything has a participation award these days. Your kid plays in a soccer tournament. Every team gets a trophy. Every team gets praise. I hear about some leagues, they don't even fucking keep score anymore. You just play for fun. There's no score, right? All these participation gimmicks. When it is completely and utterly ingrained within North American society to reward the worst teams. Not like just participation. The worse you are, the better your draft pick is. The worse you are, the higher your reward. So all these people talking about these participation awards that exist and like an epidemic there. Our entire sporting system in North America is built off of rewards for your failures. So before we can get into like the participation epidemic or whatever, we need to look at North American sports and say, is it right that the worse you are, the better player you get in the draft? That doesn't make sense. Maybe the better, honestly, with the abolished the draft, maybe the better teams deserve the better players because they've earned them. You're really good. Yes, the player wants to play for you because you're good. Sure, markets factor into that, like the Lakers. Teams want to play there. But you know what? Like, if ownership had run that organization into the ground, they wouldn't be looked at as one of these larger markets. And why aren't the Clippers as big of a market as they? Sometimes the big markets have earned the right to be big markets for what they've accomplished. And if a player wants to join a good team, maybe they should because it's a good team. Why should I be sent to like essentially the gulag if the New Orleans Pelicans win the draft lottery? Sorry to throw the Pelicans under the bus. But you know what I'm talking about? Maybe the good teams should get rewarded with good players coming up. You want to be one of the good teams, you got to be smart. You got to make savvy decisions to get there. Does that take away parity? It does. But like, I'm tired of rewarding negativity. You know what I'm saying? Better your team, the better your future. You know what? You've earned that. You've earned that. Get your scouting done. Find the guy that other teams aren't looking at. Make them better. Work on your development. Make the right trades. That might be the solution. But the NBA is not going to go for that. The NBA is not going to take away the draft. But, man, I mean, it should be a conversation. It should definitely be a conversation. Anyways, rant over. That's going to do it for the Friday edition of the Raptors Happy Hour. If you guys enjoyed, then make sure you hit the like button. If you guys want to see more content like it, make sure you're subscribed. My name is Jay Gramegna. I will be back maybe on Monday. Maybe a reaction on Monday to the All-Star weekend. That could be what we do. But thank you for tuning in, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully see you Monday. Till then.